Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the AnthroPuzzled podcast. I'm your host, Abby Letzinger, and every 2 weeks we'll explore how anthropologists are forging unique career paths beyond the usual academic sphere. Tune in, get inspired, and start piecing together your own career puzzle within the world of anthropology. On today's episode, we have Dr. Heather Smith. She holds a PhD in cultural anthropology from American University. Heather is a digital nomad and public anthropologist and brings a rich blend of experience as an advocate, tutor to neurodivergent young people, published poet and writer, yoga instructor, entrepreneur, and finance administrator, committed to public anthropology with the goal of making her work accessible outside of academia to engage with practitioners and local communities. How are you doing today, Heather?
I'm doing really well. Thank you for asking, and thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I love your podcast, and I listen to every episode, so thanks for inviting me on.
Of course. I think it's honestly really cool that you're a digital nomad because that's kind of like my dream job, but I haven't figured out how to do that and pay my bills just yet, so working towards it.
I understand. A lot of students say that, and so it's not easy, I will say that, but I'm up for the challenge, and I've been enjoying it so far, so.
That's amazing. So,
Yeah.
what exactly is it that you do, and why is it important in regards to anthropology?
Well, I am a cultural anthropologist. My dissertation research focused on natural disasters in the United States. And I did ethnographic interviews with emergency managers, first responders, and victim advocates. My goal with my work is to work with practitioners and people outside of academia to bring my research to the public. And so my dissertation research was really important to me because I'm a first generation Jamaican American. And so a lot of my origin story is impacted by spending summers in Jamaica and the fact that my family was impacted by hurricanes, both in Jamaica and Florida. And so I really wanted to spend time working with people that respond to disasters. And that was a really eye-opening experience for me. And although I don't think I could be an emergency manager myself because the work they do is really difficult, I learned a lot from them about the ways in which they build community and the challenges that they deal with in terms of mental health and they're both in their own families, but decompressing from their work. And so my postdoctoral research is focused on mental wellness in marginalized communities. I focus on low-income populations, women, and children. And so when I graduated during the pandemic. And so I defended my dissertation virtually. And I also worked full-time to put myself through school. So it took me 12 years to finish my degree. And when people hear that, they are often alarmed by how long it took. But I highlight that because there's so many non-traditional students now. And I really want non-traditional students to know that it is possible to pursue your dreams while working full-time and taking care of your families. And so I highlight that is possible. And I'm grateful that I worked for a university that employed tuition remission as a full-time employee. And I got to live and work in a city in Washington, D.C. that I really thoroughly enjoyed. And I got to work with really great professors as well. And being in D.C., I was able to work with organizations like FEMA and the National Hazard Mitigation Association and the Society for Applied Anthropology. So I made those connections in D.C. And so I'm grateful for the time that I had there.
Now, what insight, because I know that you kind of work alongside like mental health practitioners and researchers. Have you gained any insight as an anthropologist working with those kinds of individuals?
I have. I learned a lot in terms, you often, see the numbers around like disasters and how it impacts communities in terms of the overall cost and rebuilding, the building infrastructures that are lost. But what we don't spend a lot of time talking about is the mental health repercussions and how much stress it puts on practitioners in the field, how much stress it puts on first responders. They're not only taking care of their families, but they're trying to take care of themselves. And I became really interested in the ways in which we are able to recover mentally and emotionally from disasters and the way that communities are able to rebuild. when they've been completely leveled or they've lost their sense of community and sense of place. That's what I learned from working with those communities. I also learned how to be prepared to think on my feet because I took a community emergency response training in DC just to see what that experience is like. And that taught me that if we lose power and we lose Wi-Fi, like how am I getting a hold of my neighbors to check on them? Where am I going to check in? What organizations can I utilize to check in with my family if I'm not able to call them? So it allowed me to think on my feet and it taught me how to adapt in those situations. And so I'm grateful for being able to work with them.
I feel like courses like that should be offered for free for the public at a lot of universities and, in high schools as well. Because I know my husband had mentioned when he was a kid, firefighters came to their school and they had all the kids write up a safety escape plan. If your house catches on fire, where are you going to go? How are you going to do it? And I think something like that, like if a natural disaster hits or power goes down, what are ways that how can you prepare for something like that? Like resources and making sure your electronics are charged and like that you go get gas not the day before and you do it a few days in advance and how to be prepared for those things. Because I feel like a lot of people, because they're not prepared for natural disasters, when things like that start happening, they do happen, people start panic buying and then there's nothing for anybody else. And then there's no way to store all the stuff that they bought, especially if it's perishable items. And it's like, okay, well, now you don't have power and you just bought all this meat to freeze. What are you going to do with it?
100%. And I was one of those people when I was younger because in Florida, my older brother would remind me to go and get gas. Like when I was at my undergraduate institution, I was living away from home. It was still driving distance, but I thought, oh, I can just wait. And my brother and my dad warned me. And then the day before the lines were out around the corner for the gas stations, I couldn't get gas. So I had to ride out the hurricane by myself. That was the first and last time that I made that mistake. And so I'm always thinking about that now. And so, yeah, it makes you think differently. But I agree with you. It's important to be able to offer those courses for free and at different institutions. So as you mentioned, like high schools and middle schools, also local libraries, because there is a cost to a lot of those courses and it's a time commitment as well. So being able to offer it at different institutions and through schools is a really great idea. And I do have some friends that in my research fellowship, the Bill Anderson Fund, they went through those trainings in middle school and high school. So I wish that was standard curriculum across the United States for sure.
Yeah. And what exactly is the Bill Anderson Fund?
So the Bill Anderson Fund, the official name is the William Abbott Anderson Fund, and it was started by Norma Anderson in memory of her husband. He was a noted disaster researcher, and he did so much for our field in terms of helping women to get their first scholarships and helping to diversify the field. So the Bill Anderson Fund offers a network for underrepresented individuals who would like to get into disaster research and emergency response work. They offer training programs throughout the year, webinars. They offer professional development training, so helping you prepare for interviews, connecting you with internships, and they connect each student with a mentor. And so I started with them as a student, and now I'm an alumni, and I've helped to mentor students. It's such an amazing network and it transformed my life, to be quite honest. I don't know that I would finish my PhD without their help because towards the end it got really stressful and it was really helpful to be able to reach out to our mentors and get advice and feedback. And it continues to be a very wonderful and thriving organization.
Yeah, some people don't realize that when they go to get like their master's or their PhD, that it's a lot more self-driven. It's not like undergrad where you have a class and your teacher's like, you have a due date for this, make sure you're doing your homework. Whereas when you're getting your master's and working on your dissertation or your thesis, it's very much you have to be able to do it on your own for the most part. Like, sure, most of you will have like mentors but they probably have a few students that they're also mentoring. So finding the time to be able to like, hey, let's keep you on your toes. They don't have as much of that in the higher education levels than they do in undergrad. So a lot of people who struggled in undergrad tend to struggle a lot more with their mental health and when they're trying to get their higher education degrees.
Absolutely. And that's something in the BAF, the Bill Anderson Fund, we really encourage students not to isolate themselves. And I was known for doing that. I was so used to being a self-motivator, and I really had to learn over time that it's okay to ask for help. That's one of the biggest lessons I learned in grad school because, I thought I always had to have the answers and always had to have it all together. And being able to have such a great network, we're able to talk about the realities, like the ups and downs of the programs that we're in and the struggles that we're facing, both personally and professionally. And it's interdisciplinary, which is what I really enjoy. So there are people from all different backgrounds. There are engineers, sociologists, anthropologists, city planners, and they're all over the world now, which is amazing. So we're constantly reaching out to each other to co-author papers or to guest lecture in classes. So it's a really supportive network.
As a digital nomad, what does your day-to-day kind of look like?
So I really do try to plan my days around making sure that I have a quiet place to work and so when I travel, I try to spend a month to 3 months in a place because I feel that if you're going to immerse yourself in a community, you really should take the time to get to know people locally. And so I'm always looking to make sure that there's consistent Wi-Fi that I have access to, that I'm close enough to a bus station, that I am connected with at least a couple of local organizations. I volunteer in every community that I visit, whether it would be just a short daytime volunteer opportunity or it's a long-term commitment. So I've volunteered at soup kitchens. I've raised money for school supplies. I'm currently working with a few dog rescues because I love animals. And when I lived in Virginia, I worked with a really great rescue organization that rescued dogs and cats from kill shelters. And we worked with a network of foster families. And what's really beautiful about that is that there are animal rescues all over. And so I've had the opportunity to work with animal rescues in Costa Rica and North Carolina and Virginia. So that's been really beautiful. So I do try to get out every day for a walk. That's my way of just taking care of myself and my health. I realized after spending so much time in front of a computer that getting outside in nature is so important for me and my mental wellness. And everywhere I go, I end up joining walking groups. I'll just meet other people as I'm walking and I'll see them day after day and we'll stop and introduce ourselves. I still have the most amazing friends that I've met that way. And we check in with each other on WhatsApp and Instagram. And right now I have friends in Colombia, in Mexico. We still check in with each other because we met each other in a town while we were walking. So that's been really wonderful for me. So my day-to-day does involve making sure I get daily exercise and being out in nature and making sure that I'm volunteering as well. And I do practice yoga almost every day. And it's not that I'm practicing postures every day, but I am practicing meditation and breath work and centering myself that way. Because one of the things that I've found is that when you travel so often, you have to find ways to center yourself and find time for yourself because it can be overwhelming with all of the travel and all the people that you meet. And I'm an introvert, so I need time to myself, and yoga and meditation help me to do that. So a lot of times people say that I'm an extroverted introvert, and that's why I find the balance between being, my public anthropology work, but also taking time for myself to meditate. And what's great is that when I travel, a lot of yoga studios have drop-in classes that you can participate in. And that's been a great way to meet other yogis and communities where I'm visiting.
Nice. So what kind of experiences or influences led you to pursuing an anthropology degree in disaster research?
Well, so I'll be honest, my mom wanted me to be an English major and go to law school. But she was really proud of me. And so I took my first intro to anthropology class. at Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida, and I fell in love with it. I loved the subject matter. And because my parents are immigrants and they immigrated from Jamaica to England and then to Brooklyn, New York, which is where I was born, I've always had a love of travel and a love of learning about other cultures. And I thank my parents for that because they both loved to travel a lot and they encouraged me and my siblings to travel. And so, I spent summers in Jamaica, as I mentioned, but when I was a junior in undergrad, I got my first study abroad experience, which is when I went to London. And that was my first time traveling by myself because prior to that, I had traveled with my family. And that study abroad experience really just opened my eyes to knowing that I love to travel by myself. I thought that I would be too scared, but my mom really encouraged me to go. And I'm so glad that I did because I took a course in modern British politics. I interned with a member of parliament, and it was just such an amazing experience. London is a beautiful city, and there's so many cultures there that I enjoy getting to know about. And that really transformed my life. And so I committed at that point that I knew that I wanted to be an anthropologist and travel around the world. I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it, but that's what I decided at that point. And I did tell my mom over the phone that I decided I was not going to go to law school. And she wasn't enthusiastic about it at first, but she was always very supportive of all my goals and dreams. And so, she was supportive of that as well. I did lose my mom at a young age. I was 19 when she passed away. She was 53. And she was a nurse practitioner and a first responder. She not only was a midwife, but she also did emergency helicopter care for about 5 years. And that's when, like, if there's a major accident, and you see a helicopter fly in and touch down, that's when they're taking the most critical patients away and evacuating them to the closest emergency medical center. And I remember thinking that she was Superwoman because she could do that work. You couldn't convince me otherwise that she didn't have like a Wonder Woman costume underneath her nurse's uniform. But I remember her talking about the fact that it was such stressful work and that it really takes a toll on your mind and body. And losing her at such a young age really made me have a better appreciation for the work that she did. But also it made me commit to pursuing my own path and really calling attention to this work. So that was the impetus for me getting into doing ethnographies with emergency responders and victim advocates. And I'm really glad that I did because I learned a lot. So, and that's why I continue the work now.
Mm. Were there any projects or publications that you worked on that you kind of wanted to talk about that incorporates, what the work that you've kind of done over the years?
Yeah, so I did do a really great paper with a female program manager about intergenerational communication in our field and what it's like collaborating between academia and practitioners. That was a really eye-opening qualitative experience. And it was a really great paper that we wrote. It was previously on the female website, but they've since taken it down, unfortunately. But I have it linked on my LinkedIn page, and I can always send it to people if they're interested. And so that's something I'm really proud of. I am working on my first book of public anthropology essays. So I'm super excited about that. It'll be a book of short essays about my experience as a digital nomad and public anthropologist and about holistic healing and community. So I'm excited about that experience and writing that book. It's a bit nerve-wracking, but I've had a lot of support from my colleagues and I'm taking my time with it as well. And then I'm also working on a book of poetry because I've been writing poetry ever since I was a kid. I wrote my first poem when I was 9 years old, and I have wanted to publish a book of poetry, and I've just been writing a lot since graduation. So those are the two things that I'm most excited about. I'm looking for publishers, but also considering self-publishing. Several people have recommended that to me, so it's something I'm open to.
Are there any particular themes that you're hoping the readers will take away from those two books?
For sure. So definitely with my book of poetry, and this is an overarching theme in my work, is the connections I've had with matriarchs in so many different communities. There are so many matriarchs in our communities, whether it's aunties and moms, grandmothers, that offer so much love and care in terms of just reciprocity and mutual aid. In the communities I visited, I've been really inspired by that, to see how women are working together to help their communities and to create organizations and networks that really support one another, whether it be in child rearing or in career transitions. There's so many grassroots organizations and communities are doing this work. And so I've been really inspired by the matriarchs of my community. And so it's really an ode to them, both to my mom, but to also the other matriarchs that have stepped up since my mom passed away and given me so much support over the years. That's a major theme in my writing. And there's a theme of hope as well. I find that right now, especially as so many anthropology programs are closing, there's so much difficulty with us being able to find work. There sometimes is an underlying feeling of negativity, and it's understandable because we're facing so many challenges. But one of the things I find hope from is reading about other anthropologists and knowing that this is not the first or last time in our history that we'll experience challenges. And it's up to us to chart our own path and to find new ways to take this field and into both fostering change, but into the future. And so I'm reminded about writings like by Zora Neale Hurston. She was an anthropologist, and reading her writing has been inspiring to me, and reading about her life and all of the challenges that she went through. It reminds me that we can face obstacles and overcome them. And so there's an underlying theme of hope in my writing. And I don't know that I would have felt that hope had I not chosen the world as my classroom. And that's really my major takeaway. And what I encourage other students to remember is that even if you don't pursue the PhD route, it is really beneficial to not only get to know people in your own community, but to also travel when you can. And even if it's a bus ride, or even if it's finding inexpensive flights and visiting a place for a short period of time, it's worth it to see that travel, because I've learned so much outside of the classroom that way. And it's an experience that I'm hoping to create for students moving forward with my entrepreneurial work, is being able to create service learning experiences for students to be able to travel and see the world and also volunteer, because I want to be able to create those experiences and spaces for students to be able to see and learn about people outside of their communities.
Hmm. Yeah, and I feel like volunteering is a great way to like kind of dip your toes in different communities. Because I know when I was in high school, it wasn't so much like a requirement to volunteer, but in Florida, they have the Bright Future Scholarship. So if you do like 100 hours of community service and then get a certain score on your SAT or ACT, you get like a full ride scholarship to college. But it always felt like a chore to do the volunteering because it was never in things that I really wanted to do. And I think that as parents, they should definitely encourage students to kind of, instead of looking at as community service or volunteering as something that you have to do, it's something that you get to do, actually finding something that you want to like. So if you love animals, volunteering at your local animal shelter. If you love helping people, going to the local like soup kitchen or anything like that. So just finding what you enjoy doing and volunteering that way, so that it doesn't feel like it's so much of a chore and more of like a learning opportunity where you get to meet new people and people who are different from you. Because I think that's really important. And I think that's a lot of things that high schools are lacking, is, teaching you how to interact with people who aren't like you, so that you're not so scared or hateful towards people who are not similar to you, and branching out.
Absolutely. Right. I appreciate that you said that, because in Florida, we had a certain number of service hours. And I volunteered with Habitat for Humanity and the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Those were really great experiences. But you're right, there are volunteer opportunities for every kind of interest. And so it's helpful to be able to research what's out there and see what feels authentic and what feels in alignment with what you enjoy, because there is something for everyone. And the service learning experiences that I've had have been really beneficial. And when I first finished my undergraduate program, I worked for a professor of activism as his teaching assistant, and he was the director of information technology at the time. And we planned local volunteer experiences in Florida, but we also planned several trips to Ecuador for first-year college students. They taught English and set up computer labs, and I was so inspired to see how much they enjoyed that work and how much they put into volunteering when we were in Ecuador and learning another language. And I still have students from those trips that reach out to me and tell me that it changed the course of their career, or they traveled back to Ecuador or learned Spanish as a result. So I am always inspired by that. And I'm actually trying to relearn Spanish now because I got so out of practice. So I'm taking some online classes so that I can learn and become proficient in it again.
Do you feel that your background in anthropology has kind of influenced the way that you see and engage with the world?
Absolutely. In every way, I love being an anthropologist, and I love learning about other cultures. And because as anthropologists, we value the holistic perspective, we're really open to working with different disciplines, with different cultures. And it makes us really thrive in both the workplace, but just in our day to day lives. And I have other friends that are anthropologists that are working with veterans, they're working with nursing communities, they're working with people that experience PTSD. I've met some really cool anthropologists doing work with how dance helps with mental wellness and how music helps, and looking at how theater helps to integrate people into communities and helps with issues of isolation. So anthropologists are really involved in some very groundbreaking work and also very important work in communities. So I'm so grateful to be an anthropologist and to see the ways in which our field is growing and expanding and changing over time.
Now, for listeners who are curious about this kind of career path, what should they know about the financial realities or variations in getting an anthropology career?
And so I'm really honest with students about this. When I started my program, I thought that I wanted to be a tenured professor. That was the route I was going to go, that I was going to be on the tenure track. And I was excited to be on sabbaticals and do all of those things. But in this phase, I really encourage students to explore different opportunities, whether it be through internships or being able to sit down with anthropologists that are in different fields to see what it's like, because it is a difficult time in our field right now. And it isn't easy. I was offered a public anthropology in residence, and the offer was rescinded due to budget cuts. And that was a really difficult thing to deal with. But it is something that is happening. And so I encourage students to understand that there might be times that you have to work full time while you're pursuing other opportunities, or you might do two internships at a time until you find the right fit for you. I've worked full time as a finance administrator for higher ed institutions for a number of years. And I'm grateful for that experience as well, because I've learned about budgets and grants, and that's been really helpful for me. And that career experience has been invaluable, and I'm able to utilize it in my anthropology work as well. So being open to that is something that I really let students know, because we have to get creative and innovative in the ways that we look for work, and to be open to pursuing certifications or, additional trainings that can help you bolster your resume. And I think the final thing I would say about that is that it's okay to not know what you want to do long term, right? And one of my favorite mentors in the field, her name's Dr. Rachel Watkins. She was my committee chair for my dissertation. She always tells me that, there are different chapters in our career that you don't have to have it all figured out, that what I was doing during my dissertation isn't what I need to be doing 5 years from now. And so I encourage all students to think about it that way, that your career will take different turns, and that's okay.
That's the concern usually with parents when students are getting undergrad degrees is, well, how are you going to pay for bills? How are you going to cover expenses? What kind of jobs can you actually get with an anthropology degree? And I think that's something that definitely needs to be highlighted a lot more in undergrad for those who are looking to obtain an anthropology degree. But it is hard because a lot of the individuals you're taking these classes with are only professors. They're not, doing jobs outside of that. So they really can only help you if you want to go into being a professor. But I feel like there should definitely be collaborations between universities, professors of like, oh, here are people who have graduated with this degree from our university who are not professors. And these could be like a resource. So like having like a list of resources for students to talk
100%.
to those individuals in different industries, because anthropologists can be in almost any industry because pretty much as long as it's got people in it, we can be a part of it.
That's exactly true. And that's the best way to look at it. And yes, as you said, I do believe that anthropology professors should have a list of resources and that they provide to their students, but also, as you mentioned, inviting alumni to come and speak to those classes. And also I encourage students to, research professional organizations that they can join because they often have student rates, or your university programs might help you to cover those rates. The Society for Applied Anthropology is an organization that I've been involved with since I was a student, and they have chapters all over. I highly recommend participating with that organization. They're very supportive of students. The American Anthropological Association, as I know, is supportive of your podcast. And so I always encourage students to look for their professional organizations. For example, when I was in the Washington, D.C. area, I was a part of the Washington Association of Public Anthropologists. So those are organizations that you can join as a student, and it's not tied to one academic program, and it can help you to meet practitioners and people doing work in different fields. I met anthropologists that are working for the Environmental Protection Agency, that are working with local divisions of their emergency management program. So that really helped me to meet people outside of academia and to stay connected with them in the long term.
Now, is there anything we haven't discussed today that you'd like the listeners to know about before we get into our final 4 questions?
Yeah, I did want to just mention a couple of organizations that are doing really great work right now, just because I mentioned the Bill Anderson Fund. There's also the Knowledge Exchange Research Group that was started by a Black woman anthropologist that's focused on exploring solutions to ensuring that there's equitable access to information and knowledge production and access to the internet worldwide. And that organization is doing really great work. The acronym is CURG. And then Healing the Black Body, which is an organization that's focused on practicing healing and liberation through performance art, is a really great organization. And I also want to encourage people to donate as much as they can to organizations that are supporting the recovery after the hurricane that happened in Jamaica, finding local organizations on the ground, not just sending like clothes and things, but finding organizations on the ground that are using monetary donations to make sure that people have access to food. That's really important.
Well, then I guess we'll hop right into those final 4 questions. So the first one is, what is the best piece of advice you'd offer to someone who's interested in your field?
So I would say to not be afraid to reach out to people that you are interested in their work, whether it be reaching out to them on LinkedIn, read as much as you can, and to lead with your values. Let your passion guide you. Don't let others tell you what you should do with your research focus. Because when you pursue what you're passionate about, I truly believe that a path opens up for you. And embrace every job experience that you are able to have. Even if it's short term, it really can help you to gain skills that you can take with you into your future career. And so I have no regrets about any of the job paths that I've taken to date. and to not be afraid to speak highly about the work that you do and to highlight the fact that anthropologists really are collaborative and we really do value the holistic perspective and that we choose different paths for a reason because we are committed to fostering change. So even if you don't have all the answers now, keep pursuing your dreams because it's never too late to pursue artwork or pursue your favorite book or to write the book that you've always wanted to write or to go into documentary filmmaking. It's never too late to do those things.
What changes would you wish to see in the anthropology industry?
I definitely would like to see more positions in different industries that hire anthropologists to do qualitative work. I know the importance of quantitative work, but we also need to understand the people behind the numbers, and that's where qualitative work is so important. So I'd like to see more positions in different industries outside of academia that prioritize anthropology. I also would like to see more Black women in our field and that they're cited for their work. I'm always concerned when Black women have started an organization or they've written a critical body of work and then their work isn't cited or they're overlooked both for tenure in higher education institutions or they're not quoted for their work. There's a process of erasure that sometimes happens in our field where we tend to highlight the work of some individuals over others. And Black women in our field are doing such amazing work. And there's so many underrepresented groups in our field, and I'd like to see their work highlighted more.
What do you absolutely kind of just love about the work that you do?
I love collaborating with other anthropologists. I'm always so amazed when I run into anthropologists in my travels, and I love the network that we've created. I've actually wanted to give a couple shout outs to anthropologists who've been really instrumental in inspiring me in my career, which is Dr. Sabia Prince. She's a public anthropologist. She's the reason I first attended American University because her applied anthropology work continues to inspire me. Dr. Sue Taylor is an oral historian that allowed me to take an independent study with her, and she sat on a committee. And she is a medical anthropologist and she was previously a nurse. And I'm just so inspired by her and the work that she's done over the years with the National Park Service and oral histories. And I continue to want to pursue oral history in my career because of her. And so that is something I love about my work is the network of anthropologists that continue to support each other, even as we face obstacles in our field. That's something I love. And then, of course, I love to travel and I love revisiting communities that I haven't been to in a while and being able to see local businesses that are still there or connect with local community members. So that's something I really love.
Awesome. So, final question is where can listeners kind of learn more about you and what you do?
They can find me on LinkedIn and they can also find me on my Instagram page. It's Mama Pause LLC, and that is dedication to the Jamaican patois term for mother.
Okay, perfect. Well, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to sit here and talk with me in regards to being a digital nomad and public anthropology and disaster relief research. I had a great time. I feel like it's a great discussion, and I think it'll open some doors for students on deciding careers that they want to take and, not just doing what other people want them to do, but actually look within themselves to find out what exactly they want to do. So I just want to thank you for that.
As I mentioned, I love podcasts like this because it helps us to be able to stay connected in our field. So I really appreciate you making this space for all of us to have these discussions.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Take care, Abby.
Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to another episode of AnthroPuzzled. This show was produced by me and distributed in collaboration with the American Anthropological Association. A special thanks to Cheyenne Brewer for editing the website, L. Akers for the incredible logo design, and to AnthroPuzzled's interns for the episode descriptions. The music is courtesy of Chad Crouch, aka Poddington Bear of Sound and Picture. If you have any questions, you can reach me at abby.letzinger@anthropuzzled.com or as AnthroPuzzled on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Until next time.